Hello, friends. How are you today? The title of this session is How to Be Aware and Whole. I'm going to talk about some things that interest each and every one of us, and that will break us away from everyday life, from our habits. We'll also take a look at some topics that are internally important to us, in our heart, in our soul, and in calming our minds. Because worrying and anxious thoughts very easily become obtrusive. We often sink into fear because there are a lot of circumstances and reasons from the outside. But we can help ourselves. Today, we will turn our attention to a topic related to how to manage our internal processes and how to pay attention to and understand our self-worth, self-awareness, self-connectivity. Those are some laws that lead to a balance between giving to others and giving to ourselves. A balance between accepting, realizing, and working on our personal shadow and fears, but at the same time, connecting with the opportunities and resources that we carry within ourselves. It is no coincidence that often we read and talk about the fact that we have to become complete personalities, to work towards completeness within ourselves, not to consider ourselves only as a half, looking for its other half in order to become a whole, or to believe that there are things that we can't develop in ourselves and go looking for someone else to fill them up from the outside. You already know that we first need to work on how far we can develop ourselves. How far can we open up the opportunities that are within our reach? What does that mean? It means to bear responsibility, to make effort on our own, to act towards what we wish to unfold, to make it happen. Not to believe that we are limited, split internally within ourselves, that the people from the outside or those we aspire to are going to fulfill for us what we desire. Yes, we can get support, but the outside support is secondary. It will come into our lives when we are primarily connected to developing more opportunities in ourselves. When we want something, it's our own desire. When we strive for a change, that's our need for change. When we want something to happen in a certain way, when we have an idea and need for this to happen in a certain way, this means that a large dose of that responsibility is personally ours. That means that we should find a way to change. We should act towards that change. We should become more consistent. We should act so that we really see what that means, what effort it requires, what we need to find out for ourselves. So, I have put together a few points to look at with you today. We can think about them and put them in your field of consideration, both in your inner understanding and perception, and in how they appear in your internal and external reality. The first thing we will look at is understanding one's own vulnerability and pain. The more you understand your own vulnerability or pain, the more you will be able to understand and direct others who face the same problems. This is the first and a very important element and factor which we will begin to work on. If we avoid, suppress, conceal, and look for a way not to get into that understanding of our vulnerability and pain, we will face more and more conflicts, pain or divergence with the people entering our lives. That's because on a subconscious level, they will feel obliged to push exactly those vulnerabilities and pains in us that we have long been running away from. Situations and circumstances will happen that will once again get us into that energy and into that field of vulnerability and pain. Because we can't run for a long time. For some time, life is tolerant of our insecurity and fear of going in and meeting our own vulnerability. But at some point, life will set before us a boundary. This boundary will challenge us to see that we can no longer keep running or be angry at our vulnerabilities and pain. What we have to do is to face them. Let's sit down with our vulnerability and pain. See what they are. So, do this homework. Try to understand your own vulnerability and pain that you still hold within yourself. Get to know them. Look at them. Try to understand more about what's going on in depth with you so that you can develop a new sensitivity to others. Because when we allow ourselves this sensitivity towards ourselves, we will be able to look at others not through the eyes of blame, demand, and criticism, how the other has not changed, how he or she has not given us enough and hasn't fulfilled our desires that we talk about and wait so much for. And we see the situation as if we are tolerant of his or her inability to change. But how long are we going to wait? This criticism and those requirements won't let us develop this new sensitivity because our gaze is filled with frustration. And that's because we are not satisfied with ourselves, because we are afraid to change something, because we are afraid to leave this situation. We are afraid that we don't know what newness will come and what will happen. We're afraid of the unknown. We're afraid that we will have to make much more effort to change ourselves. We fear that we will have to clearly see our illusions, the illusion that the other is obligated to us. Others don't owe us. We build this filter of attack, of illusion, of frustration, of seeing the other's weaknesses, the requirements, the expectation that everything should happen our way, to pile up the chagrin. Why? Because we do not want to get into our own vulnerability and pain. Running from it, denying it, we transfer involuntarily or unwittingly the attitude that others owe us. We want the other person to change for us, the other person to make it happen, the other person to understand it for me. I want him or her to quickly learn how to do it. Yes, this is such a blissful utopia of illusion. We need it. But what does that actually mean? That we are a screaming baby who roars and resists reality and expects mommy to come to satisfy him or her, mommy to vocalize things, mommy to save him or her, daddy to help. Yes, no matter what age we are, we carry a screaming baby within us. We carry a child who can get angry and enter into the fairy fantasy, to expect things to happen quickly. But we also carry a rebellious teenager. But we need to understand that we now need to transform these old models. We already have the capacity to stop these limiting, unresourceful mechanisms of looking at others like a baby who's whining and is feeling unsatisfied and suffering, and to get into the role of a growing, conscious, holistic, self-sufficient adult. We have not grown up and truly entered into the inner soulful emotional world, in this emotional grown-up intelligence of the adult who understands his or her pain, talks about it, without talking about it like, I'm in pain and I feel bad because my partner didn't choose me the way I want him or her to, because my partner imposes his or her patterns, and my desires cannot be satisfied because I'm not heard. I'm vulnerable and I get angry because I don't get what I want from my work team. The boss doesn't appreciate me. Why do they always underestimate me? Not that way. We've talked about this many times, because again we're deluding ourselves that we're talking and entering into a true understanding of our vulnerability and pain. But in fact, we're projecting this vulnerability and pain onto someone else as a culprit, as if someone else brings it to us and challenges us every day with his or her misunderstanding of us. And in fact, this is the mirror outside of our personal understanding. And this is again a signal from the outside, a sobering fact from the outside, that it is time for us to start taking responsibility for our own vulnerability and pain. So by gathering within yourself, working out this process of light and dark, of resource and fear, you need to write down what vulnerabilities you carry in yourself. What makes you feel vulnerable? What is the pain I have locked inside of me, and I still have it within myself, and I haven't found enough courage and time to see it? You will learn about your vulnerability and pain by thinking about what vulnerability and pain you see that someone else is causing you. The topic of vulnerability and pain is the one that causes in you a strong, anxious, angry, or painful emotion. This is exactly the vulnerability and pain that you need to see, talk, explore, to see what topics it contains, whether about trust or the inability to appreciate ourselves, self-respect, lack of courage, infidelity, or self-betrayal. Try to see what this topic is for you. When you write, it will clearly come out what is bothering you and how you are not ready to look at it and work on it yet. But when you see what this pain and vulnerability is, you can ask yourself questions. What does this pain teach me? And this vulnerability, what does it want to show me? What is it that I don't want to start doing to change it? What new thing should I choose to do, to think and to act, to alleviate that pain and vulnerability? How can I get over this pain and vulnerability? Did I cry it out? Have I forgiven it, or anyone else, or myself, for letting me stay in a situation where I felt hurt? Have I been able to take responsibility in this situation for this pain and vulnerability? Responsibility. What does it mean to me? To say something I haven't stated, to confess something I haven't admitted, to do something I've put off and run away from. It's very important that you ask yourself these kinds of questions to see what's in you. Why does this pain and vulnerability remain in my life? And how can I personally start to change it little by little? If it's something related to unspoken emotions, things I haven't admitted, first to say it. It hurts me. I haven't been able to deal with it. I haven't had the courage to change that. I haven't acknowledged some chagrin and vulnerability. I didn't know how to react. I've stayed fixated in the same pattern. If it's about some action, let's see what we need to start doing to set new boundaries and make the effort so that we can alleviate and take the pain and vulnerability into our own hands and be able to soften it, change it. Have we given ourselves the time needed to cry it out about what is vulnerable to us? I've talked about the mourning process in my previous podcast as well. So first meet this pain and vulnerability of yours. Develop this sensitivity. Another thing that's very important is to take a look at the empathy that we are talking about developing. It means not to cause others with words or actions what we do not want to be done to us. To develop some kind of ecology in the relationship with ourselves and with others. Let's put ourselves in each other's shoes. Imagine that if someone treats me the way I do, how will I feel? The words I say, the requirements I place, the accusations I make, the victim I play to make the other consciously or unwittingly feel unwell and responsible in an unpleasant way. Or the burden I transfer as my responsibility to be a savior or to be in charge of something that's my responsibility. Try to exchange roles. Step into each other's shoes to feel how it means for the other. Hear yourself from the sidelines. See what this responsibility is, how these words sound, so you can understand how sometimes we fail to feel what the other person feels, and we fail to truly understand what the responsibility is for our feelings and for our words that we give as messages. How sometimes we overdo something because we bring our pain into it. Thus, you will begin to revise your attitude, both towards yourself and towards others. Quite often in my work, when we play out theatrical patterns, the client gets into the image of the one with whom he or she has a conflict and feels how the other person feels. Hears the same exact words which my client repeats constantly about the other person. And I tell my client to hear themselves from the sidelines and see the story as an observer. And I'll tell you that a lot of interesting processes happen. The client begins to reduce his or her anger or frustration, begins to feel and understand things that he or she has not been able to allow him or herself to feel, because the client was only in his or her own criticality, demands, dissatisfaction with others, and the lack of change in the other person. So do an exercise where you write on a sheet of paper the words you say to the other person, the pain, the vulnerability that you feel they cause you. The way you transfer responsibility or requirements onto the other, the way you communicate and act or do not act, because it turns out that a lot of people are saying, I seem to have forgotten to be gentle and thoughtful. There are no words of affection. There's no, I'm sorry, I overdid it. There are no words of, I value what you're giving me. We have differences, but we can find a way. That's my responsibility. I can't always transfer it to you. We've forgotten to put respect and responsibility in our words, to have a more neutral attitude without any judgment and imputation of guilt with regards to the other or to ourselves, to not manipulate each other through self-pity. We've even started to be so silent. It's like there's nothing to say to each other anymore. But when you write down the words and actions you take towards someone else, and then step into their role, ask someone to read them to you, or read them to yourself, but through the other person's eyes. This exercise will allow you to really understand some additional things that can reduce your criticism and transferring responsibilities to others. It is very useful, and you will draw some conclusions. This conversation with our personal pain is very therapeutic. Until now, people have greatly avoided talking about this internal vulnerability and decay that we carry, because in this way we bear ourselves. We bear the most intimate details, and that which is the most intimate is our pain and vulnerability. Healing is attained by seeing this hypersensitivity in yourself, and you are the one who can perform the process of restoring yourself. Only when you start doing it will you understand what it means to others. The second point is that if you feel fear inside of you, you will find fear outside of you. And the more you increase the field of fear, of uncertainty, of panic, of negativity, of frustration, you will cause, reflect, and see the same outside. The inner reality and external reality are reflections of each other. Fears are a part of our lives. Fear can protect us, teach us. There is also a self-preservation process. Of course, fear makes us more vigilant. It is thought-provoking, but this is the constructive part of it. At some point, when we forget about this constructive part and immerse ourselves in the obsessiveness of fear and begin to see only the negative, the threat, the uncertainty, and we magnify the fears, at some point we sink into a dark abyss of uncertainty. In this way, you will cause the pain to pulsate even more in you. You will cause the vulnerability to tell you that you have to start working on it. You will hear from others the same insecurities and fears, and everything will seem to you more and more hopeless. Write down your fears. What are your fears? How big are they? Do you have control over them at all? Or do you have no control? See which ones you can change. Because there are fears that are related to whether I'm going to die soon, whether I'm going to get infected, what's going to happen, whether that vaccine is poisonous. All kinds of stuff are being written. Is this world going to be able to calm down? When will this virus end? When will these sanctions be removed? Things are going to become very unpleasant. We will lose everything. We'll go bankrupt. At this point, when we start talking, there will be a great force of fear that challenges our individuality and mind to see the inability to influence those fears and thoughts at this moment. Why are we talking about having to open ourselves to the spiritual self? Why is it said that we need to immerse ourselves in faith, in trust? Because sometimes fear and thoughts become so great that we need to relax and surrender. In a good sense, to surrender to reality as it is without trying to fight it. Accept that there will be some kind of limitation. Accept that we will face some losses. Accept that there is something that makes us feel insecure. But don't increase it ourselves as something catastrophic. Accept that it will pass and it will happen, but then there will be something else that will come into our lives. There can be only a decline and only an increase. That is, there is a dynamic movement. To be able to reduce these obsessive and overwhelming thoughts about fear and negativity yourself. When fears are too great, commit yourself to the mindset that I let go of these fears. It's very healing. I mentioned it in another podcast, but today I will repeat it again. When fears are so big that they suffocate you, because they lead to the point that thoughts run back to your past and the losses that have happened, and for the things that we have not foreseen, we can see the uncertain future and the horror of everything that is happening in the present, and talking about death, about uncertainty, about diseases, about losses, how much this all will increase further, how we will be forced to do something that we do not want to. This doesn't let us breathe. A panic attack or a sense of extreme uncertainty and decay. But we can help ourselves little by little. And when we have such great fears, which reside in us daily, choose this intention. I release these fears into Mother Life and Father Fate and the Creator God, so they will do the right thing, the best thing for me. I trust in what will happen to me, even though my mind sees it as scary and critical. Life has its wisdom. Life and destiny have their message for me and all other people. Let me take this knowledge. Let me allow myself to calm the fear and the crisis. Let me find the change that I have to start working on for myself. I let go. I trust and give myself into the hands of Mother Life, Father Fate, and the Creator God. I give them all these fears of mine to erase them. My fear and my soul so that more ease will come. Choose this attitude to open up in trust to the invisible world, to relax in life, to what surrounds us. The more we enter into resistance in the struggle, not accepting what is happening, criticizing it, being angry and aggressive towards life, being afraid, and only seeing how deadly everything happens, we will continue to hold the internal and external reality in this way. It will be reflected through a more destructive mechanism. Parallel with this destructive mechanism, with the darkness, with our fears, with the negativity, the anxiety, the death, the failures, we can see them. We can learn from them. We can get over them. We can make change happen. But running parallel to darkness, there is also light. There is resource, the opportunity to smile, to be thankful, to rejoice in something small, to read something peaceful for my soul and thoughts, to take some action that will energize me in some way, to do something that is not typical for me or that I haven't done before, to start making choices that I've never made before, to allow ourselves to do something that will open up new opportunities, and to challenge us to explore our reality and attitudes in a different way. See if you increase your fears with your own thoughts. We make up a lot of probability theories. If, but, however, most likely. Now this or that will come. Women are more likely to create such theories. It's purely a feminine trait. We just carry it in us. To create probability theories, to have this internal theater and drama. Men are rather more pragmatic, rational. They somehow manage to stop this inner emotional wave of fear and hopelessness. But each of you can explore this for him or herself, to see what and how you are doing to yourself with precisely these thoughts. Try to see if we are the ones who are pretty much creating this. For example, I lost some money a while ago. I can't make happen some of the things that I want to, some of which I've done before, but I can choose whether or not to remain in that state, claiming how horrible everything is, what a terrible experience it was, how it all continues to be so scary. Or I can come back to the here and now and say, okay, do I have any financial resources now? Yeah, I've got less, but at least I've got some. Can I choose to energize, whether by looking at the sun, whether to thank life, whether to put on some good music, or to call a friend to share something with him or her? We now at this point can choose something other than what we've stewed on and complained about from the past, or what we fear could happen in the future. Let's focus on the present. How? When we turn the focus to our body, we take a breath and we say, wait a minute now. What's happening right now, in this moment? Am I sick? Am I terribly sick? Or am I not? Even if I am sick, how can I improve myself? By having some nice thoughts, by returning to some nice memory, with the confidence that I can help myself with prayers to God. If I'm not sick, okay, great, I'm healthy. What can I do right now? Go out for a walk, drink a glass of wine with pleasure, or read something. Just see what you can do at this point and really see how we're spinning in our mind all these scary things. Are they really happening at this moment, here and now? You'll see how many of all these thoughts, which we believe are scary, are not actually real in this moment. Yes, some people do have real problems or experience physical pain. Some of them are losing something right now. At this moment, something unpleasant is happening to someone. Yes, that's a fact. But it is happening now, and it will pass. shortly afterwards. And once it passes, we will again be able to see and revise what else we have left, what we can do. After all, we are still alive. We continue to be in its magic, in its dynamics, and we are the ones who have to start choosing how to be more explorative, self-worthy, healthy at this exact moment, in this minute right now. To take a breath, to think of what I can tell myself, how to energize, how to relax, what to admit, how to please myself at this moment. What do I need to forgive myself for? How can I stop thinking about something that has happened in the past or something from the future that is still uncertain? If you practice this daily, if you force yourself to do these things in small steps, you will start to observe changes. I can assure you, because you're going to change your focus. You will do another type of workout on the perception of yourself and of reality. You will set in motion thoughts, programs, and emotions that you may not feel at first because it will not be typical for you. It will not be your classic model that has been present so far. But when you continue to do it and you are consistent, and although you will feel neutral at first, you will not feel so much anxiety, shortness of breath, because you won't think so much about the fear and horror that you exaggerate. Then there will come neutrality. I don't feel anything about what's going on. It's not very charging, but when you continue to do it, there will come a pleasant feeling, a slightly calmer one, more relieving, and that will be an indication that you are working and are resilient. You are sustainably creating new patterns and steps. This is, after all, a change and some kind of relief. The other point is that only after you can count on yourself can you begin to rely on others. Let's depend on ourselves. Nobody owes us. Whatever someone has done, he or she has done according to his or her capabilities. And we need to be grateful for the little things that someone has done for us. But if someone refuses or can't do something, you cannot force them with requirements, guilt, control, or by becoming a victim in front of them to make them change and give you what you want. Nobody owes us. Yeah, we want them to, but it's not going to happen. We can't force anyone to change and think differently, to grow up, to earn more, to give us more, to choose us over everyone else, to tell us certain words, not to choose someone else, to never refuse us anything. If you say this to yourself out loud, you will hear your absolute madness and how you direct the other to be something he or she is not. But if someone tells you, I want you to be like this, to act like that, to do this, and he or she imposes his or her own beliefs on you, you'll say, this is unfair. You want to be accepted as you are. You want your boundaries to be accepted, your differences. You want others to wait until you are ready to change, to be more tolerant while negotiating. But we do not want to be the same way towards others, and we are more imperative. It can't be like that. It's a violation in balance. It's self-deceptive thinking that we can do this to another person, yet no one can do it to us. Again, I remind you of the exercise to put yourself in the shoes, in the skin, in the mind and the experience of the other person, in his or her reality. Hear yourself from the outside, like you are that person, and you will realize a lot of things. At some point, you will think, what am I doing? I want him or her to talk like this, to behave in a certain way, to change that, to give me so much, at this particular time, in this particular way, to pick up my car, to give me this, to make that happen for me. I want him or her to take care of me, to buy me gifts. We are again in the mechanism of the requirement, of the consumer, and we are in the model of a screaming baby who refuses to become an adult. The time has come to grow up. The time for personal karma has come, personal responsibility as well. Now is the time when we have to catch ourselves and clean up all the trouble we hold within ourselves and become responsible for starting to give to and develop ourselves first. The baby period has long been over for us, literally. We are long past childhood. We can no longer justify ourselves with our parents. I hear quite often during my sessions with clients, well, I'm like this because that's what my mom and dad did. They were like that. I've read that all those problems are caused during childhood. That's why I'm like this. How can they change? How can I convince them to change? How can I make them tell me this or that? There's no way that's going to happen. You are already adults. You've grown up. You are responsible. You can become your own parent. The revision of the past and parenthood is meant to show you what you can change and how you let yourself justify it with excuses and pains from the past. But you can personally work on it. Parents have done the most important thing. They gave us life. This is the most valuable gift, the life that is in you, the choice that life brings to you, the breath you take in, your life, your love for life. However, if you do not like something and want to change it, first thank your parents that they are exactly as they are, with all the pros and cons, because they have given you this life, which pulsates in you. You are the ones who can choose what to change from those patterns you witnessed, without justifying yourself with your parents, without blaming, and without expecting a partner to clear these things for you, because your parents did not clear them for you, or did not give you something, and so on. You have to become your own parent, to be able to calm yourself, to give yourself that care, to say those words to yourself, to become that partner, to build in yourself the inner care you need. If you don't feel safe with yourself, you won't feel safe with other people either. Safety. How do you take care of your safety? How do you do this for yourself so that you embrace your inner child? How do you take care of yourself? There are many different ways you can calm down, even when you feel pain and fear. You can do visualizations. See where this pain is located, where it stands in your body. It could be in your abdomen. It could be in your chest, or your throat, or your head. Those thoughts of fear and pain. What are they like? Visualize them. Look at them. How strong are they as a feeling, as an internal state? Do some visualization in which you take this pain from the abdomen, or if it's in your head, imagine it as a little child, or something that you can take and hold in your arms. Study it. Calm it down. Put in your mind the inner idea that you can contain the pain in your hands, that you can model it, that you can calm it down. What would you say to someone if they were carrying that pain? How are you going to calm him or her down? What are you going to say to the person? How are you going to charge him or her with some positive words? What decision you might see as an opportunity? It's as if you're talking to yourself. Or you can imagine it's someone else, or some little kid with that pain and that fear. Play a bit with your mind to reduce higher anxiety or negativity. Imagine how you hold that fear. These are some of the techniques, the proactive techniques and methods that I use when working with children and doing art therapy as well. Many of you have been to such workshops and know that there really is a process of enlightenment, of ease. With creativity and visualizations, we can calm the mind. But it's very important to create your own safe space. What is it? You can find it yourself. Use meditation and visualization techniques which make you feel safe. Try to relax. Unload your fears in some place. Simply create your own internal ideas that work for you, so that they create a more secure and reassuring inner environment. Truly loving yourself is a part of this whole process, because you will also love your shadow and your vulnerability and your love. You will love the responsibility of creating a safe place. And see your resources. Many people forget to see their resources. They don't appreciate the knowledge they bring and the achievements they have attained. They talk about what they're proud of and why they consider themselves special with shame in their voice. Because there's an accepted understanding and normality that it's ugly to be proud of yourself or to boast. That it's too selfish. That you can't say, "This is who I am. I feel like this." That this sounds selfish. No. Remove those blocking patterns. Release yourself in order to be able to like yourself. Rejoice in yourself. When I ask someone who comes to me, "Well, I see you are critical of yourself. You are afraid. I see how you are always imposing some requirements, always checking something, doubting, afraid. But what are you thankful for? In yourself? What knowledge of yours do you value? What are you proud of?" And here they fail to express all that might unleash their inner security, to immerse into ourselves and self-care. Write down what knowledge you find valuable in yourself, what efforts you have made to achieve something you're proud of, what qualities are valuable to you in yourself, how you helped someone, how it gave you a nice feeling when you did something good. What word did you use to calm yourself and create an internal motif and something that you are proud of? Just write on your inner board of respect, of joy for oneself, of pride. Share this. There is no need to be ashamed or doubt our success. So, you will internally develop this self-confidence, self-support, self-worth, self-esteem, respect for our knowledge. That's extremely important, because when we do it for ourselves and we understand how important and valuable it is to us, we will be able to see it and appreciate it in others. We will know that since it's valuable to us, it is also valuable to the other person. And if someone lacks the opportunity to lean on his or her own self-esteem, self-praise, paying attention to him or her, so that he or she recognizes it and writes it down. In this way, we support this process in others. The more you can be who you really are, the more others can be themselves when they are with you. This is very important. Repeat it to yourself. See how these words will echo in you, how you can internally consider this idea. The more you can be who you really are, the more others can be themselves when they are with you. The authenticity we're talking about, me being me, to be myself and to be who I really am, means to stop feeling the need to lie, to distort the truth, to manipulate, because we fear the other's reaction. When we don't allow ourselves to be truly ourselves, we basically self-block ourselves. We give ourselves a daily shot of self-rejection and want to escape from ourselves. But why are we ashamed of ourselves? Why do we fear ourselves? Why do we think we have no right to be ourselves? Why do we feel it's impossible to show who we really are? When we face this restriction or such limitations and allow ourselves to test them out and speak without criticizing and without judgment towards the other person, just saying, "That's what I understand. That helps me. That's what hurts me. That's the difference." It's hard to change that now. I understand what you're saying, but at this point, I still need time. It's hard for me to forgive or accept. I need time to work on myself. I want that change, but I still don't know how to reach it. I've put on you this need for change, but I'm asking myself why I'm waiting for it only from you. And where am I? I feel sick that we don't get along, or that we don't give this to each other. But obviously we haven't found a way to be honest and to ask ourselves what we can change. If someone doesn't want to change, we have to assume that he or she is not ready. If we start to talk about ourselves in this way, about our pain, our boundaries, about something that we're not ready to change yet, be honest. Many things can change purely in the energy emotional field in which we reside with ourselves and others. Train yourself to really be yourself. See what lies you hide in yourself, what you distort, what you avoid telling, what you find difficult to admit. Why? Ask yourself the question, why does something inside me make me distort, lie, manipulate? What is that which I can't admit about myself? What is contained in this escape of mine? Ask yourself these questions because they will help you see what mechanism you hold inside yourself and what is the main topic that you have not yet worked out for yourself, and you can immerse yourself in it. Because there's a lot we can learn when we ask ourselves questions. However, we often ask the questions of others because we want to hear from them what is happening and why something is not working out. But how often do we ask ourselves these questions about ourselves? Another thing is to express compliments of support to ourselves and others. What do we like about each other? We forget how to support each other with those kind words. In each person, we can see something that is beautiful, useful, kind. Everyone brings kindness, as long as we want to see it, both for us internally and for the other. Every creature, every person needs to hear something nice, good, pleasant, energized, to be accepted, to be forgiven, to be looked at in a different way. If that's how we do it, we will connect to the collective emotion, the collective treatment, in a way that's really lighter and different. We will improve the field of the collective soul for the sake of understanding and respecting even the pain we bear and our weaknesses, but also of being able to give ourselves something resourceful and benevolent in spite of these pains and weaknesses. Our relationship with our parents is a part of the entire internal process. Let's think about whether we still carry insult and judgment, whether we escape into our thoughts and into emotions focused on our parents, whether there's still any judgment or anger towards them, or if we play out our lies and our roles in front of them. Know that this process with our parents has a deep root that we need to really work on. Because the way that we treat our parents internally, as we speak to them, as we judge them, in fact, we will in this way treat ourselves and our romantic partners. Because this is the first base and the primacy of meeting life, love, attitude, affection. This occurs through our parents. Criticism of them will be criticism that will haunt us from within, because our mother and our father live inside us, and through their eyes, through their emotionality in the connection with us, through this experience of the past, through these eyes and through this experience, we will continue to live our lives and invite different partners and significant people to enter our lives. So they're going to get into this environment where internally you might think that you've forgotten it or that you don't want to think about it. or that it has nothing to do with our choice of partners or close people. But that's not exactly the case. It has a lot in common. When we start working in therapy, we see how many things are repeated from the relationship with our parents, the patterns we have taken up, the insults we carry. At one point, clients themselves realized the delusion itself was in them, that it had nothing to do with the external factors that might have motivated them to seek my help. And the situations actually have a lot in common. So it's like we live a life borrowed from our parents. We repeat the initial patterns and relationships. We can realize them and start consciously to focus on and change them. Because the grown man and woman in us can choose what to change and train as new models in him or herself. Thank you for tuning in today. Love to love. Speak through the heart. Choose to believe and know that you can change many things so that you can feel good. Both with your thoughts and with your emotions, you can change the patterns in your communication. Goodbye for now.